Join me in celebrating the 100th episode of Mystical Sisterhood. This episode is all about coming together in a unity consciousness where we truly have each other's backs and are cheering on our growth while learning from each and every guest and episode. Walk away feeling inspired by yourself and the women around you. Thanks for being here, and let's just dive into the episode. Welcome back to Mystical Sisterhood. This is your host, Maureen Spielman. I am very excited and honored to be sitting here to say, let's celebrate the 100th episode of Mystical Sisterhood. I am approaching the second full year of podcasting, and I've truly loved each and every episode so far. The women who have come to this platform have absolutely blown me away with their stories and their life's work and what they've been through. And I've said all along, there is no shortage of amazing guests and just wisdom out there, and no shortage of inspiration. So it is my intention to keep going on after episode 100 here. And I want to say, whether you're an avid listener and you've been with me for almost or all the episodes, whether you're a dabbler and you touch in every so often when you see a title that catches your eye, or whether you're brand new, I welcome you. I welcome your thoughts. I welcome your inputs, what you want to hear about. And I'm really, truly invested in you living out your highest expression and highest expression in your life. So I want to say, this came to me right before I recorded, that I want to dedicate this episode to all the women who have come before us, generations back, our grandmothers, our grandmothers' grandmothers, our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, our nieces, our cousins, our friends. Any woman that has impacted your life, could be a teacher, a mentor, someone really unexpected that has shown you the way. I just want to say so much gratitude for these women. They may have not been in a place in their lives where they knew how to take care of themselves, yet they guided us nevertheless. And we know, because we are living in this time, that it hasn't always been easy for them and even for ourselves. But we continue to do the work. We're curious about clearing what's come through ancestral lines with reverence and gratitude, if we can get there, for what we experienced, because we know in our hearts that it is for our own evolution and growth. So I invite you to take a moment to deeply honor someone who has come before you or stood by you on this path. She is a true sister and soulmate. I love that. Thank you. I want to say personally to my beloved family and friends who have supported me in the creation of the podcast and given me reflections and feedback and love for putting it out there. You are absolutely the wind beneath my sails, and I'm grateful for you. I want to give a shout out to Simona Costantini. She's been my faithful editor for a year, almost a year, and I feel like we are very simpatico in the vision and what we're up to here in general. So I want to say thank you, because she's an ease and flow with our working partnership. And if you're ever looking to start a podcast or know someone who is, I'd highly recommend her work. So a huge thank you to Simona right off the bat. Lots of podcasters do produce podcasts that they are editing on their own. And I've known from the get-go that this podcast would never have gotten off the ground if I hadn't used an editor. And so I needed to do that in order to know that what I had to say and put out there and the kind of messages I wanted to deliver, I had the support, because finding the support, pulling in the support in our lives is so important. Just gratitude for everyone I've just listed. You've heard me say so many times that I've been building this plane in the air and fully trusting that it started out and it would become a vehicle for joy and healing to inhabit in our lives. Based on an idea that popped into my head one day in my laundry room, I immediately fell in love with the name and ran with it. And so much so that earlier this year, it became a registered trademark. So that's fun, because I think as women in business, staking our stake, I don't know, placing that stake, I guess it is, in the ground, to say, like, I'm creating this. This is worthy. And a lot of these kind of businesses or work that's being put out into the world, it's not so traditional. It's not corporate. It's not, in a building. It's so many times solopreneurs, like with an idea and a passion that they're so wild about that they bring it forward with a lot of energy and momentum. So I am fully committed to this original version and any kind of iteration it's meant to take, but of joy and healing coming together in this space and bringing forth the intuitives, the healers, and other courageous women and men to this platform. I watch for themes and patterns as to why this work is meaningful, and I'm going to share a little bit about that with you today. And to each listener, thank you for being here. You are invaluable to me. You are gold. We're almost to 13,000 downloads, a couple hundred shy. We'll be there soon. But I want to just remark on that. I'm not a big numbers person. It's not the thing that guides me, but it's really fun to see how I consider this like a very homegrown podcast. I'm not famous. I'm not pulling in yet, copious amounts of listeners, but to build something and then nearly 2 years later, know that 13,000 times it's been downloaded and the messages are being delivered out into the universe and the vibration of the guests and the messages. And it's just really important and it's really profound and impactful. So to each guest and each listener who's agreed to either take the seat next to me or listen on your Wednesday walks or your weekend drives, thank you. Your willingness and wisdom to show up in the ways that you are impact me each and every week. To the guests, they impact the listeners. And I believe they really impact the collective of who we are becoming, both individually and as a collective in our society. We know, if you're a listener here, we know this work is essential. It is absolutely essential. It is not a hobby. It is not, oh, women's stuff or fringy or a woo-woo. It is important because when we really commit to ourselves, this is when change occurs. When we commit to healing the separation that has occurred within ourselves, we contribute to the healing of the world. It leads to a more beautiful place to live and gives others the courage to step into their light too. So I love that. We were all little girls once with hopes and dreams that may or may not yet have come true. We all had childhoods and young adulthoods filled with celebrations and losses. We learned along the way, most of us, that we had to be somebody that was not really ourselves or play by somebody else's rules. Because of it, we likely suffered difficult times of self-doubt or getting off really what is our authentic path and true self, feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, even out of control at times. We are beginning to understand or may now understand that it's all been for a reason, although we may not know yet how to create change in our lives. We may have done some work, you may have done some work, maybe even a ton of work, yet there are still places inside just waiting to become unearthed so that we can shine in our own special way. It's the human path. Believe me, I've been there. I have been there. If you know me personally, you know I've been there. And even me as the podcast host, I was talking with some friends just about vulnerability, and you may see a little bit of me coming out more as I've gotten comfortable sitting here. And that this idea of like, we have to feel safe in our environment to begin to share and begin to know that we're okay. I'm on the journey with you. The parts of me that are not, I'm never going to be the person that's like putting everything out there. But me as your guide, you're by your side, I'm there right with you. It is the human path, like I said, and everything talked about on this podcast are meant to be avenues to becoming a fuller expression of ourselves. One, where we have our needs met, where we voice what we need, we share our opinions, thoughts, we learn to take responsibility for ourselves, possibly even for you shifting from a time in your life where you thought everything was happening to you to everything happens for you. So it's a transition. And then I think most of us have been there too, and we're transforming that. We learn to connect with ourselves and how to connect with ourselves and become invested and become interested. We first have to be aware, like, oh, I think I want to deepen the connection with myself. I think I want to get to know myself even more deeply and use the best of what is out there to support us in doing so. I see that Mystical Sisterhood has become a beautiful resource library for your perusal. I didn't know I was doing this, but I just realized that I love how I love, and I know so many of my fellow coaches listening and just women I know, we are forever seekers. We see a book, we're like, okay, order it. We got to read that. And you're just taking in information. But one reason I think that I love to do it is almost like I'm a researcher for this job. So I get to research what is there for all of us. And we get to do it together because I take your input on guests and topics as well. The conversations about how we as women have been conditioned to stay small or hidden or hide our voice or not put ourselves first is really important right now. This episode is airing 2 weeks after the election in the United States. I think a lot of us women are like, okay, we've got work to do. We've got more work to do. And we can do it in our ways. You may have a real activist energy. I'm a softer energy where I do the work in the way through the podcast and through my individual coaching and the groups I run. That's my path. But in any way you do it, I think that there will be more and more agreement that this work is really needed right now. So the world is calling for women to live both in their divine feminine stepping forward and the divine masculine. And I hope to get into those topics a little more deeply as we move on too. We need both sides within ourselves. We need to have the feminine that leads with love and compassion and can approach subjects with softness. And we also need the side within us that's the masculine saying, I'm worthy and here's the way I want to do it. And I'm going to speak that out into the universe and I'm going to share what I think and develop those skill sets or muscles, however you like to describe that, but really develop those qualities within ourselves. So we've learned through the 100 episodes how to connect deeply to ourselves through things like inner child work, ritual, understanding our emotions. These have been some of the foundations of creating this forward momentum in our lives. Doing so with compassion and non-judgment have shown up repeatedly, helping us undo years of self-criticism and, frankly, self-abuse. Story after story of a woman committed to her own healing and bringing forth work to support other individuals. It makes me want to cry because it's so beautiful. Understanding ourselves as a soul with a life's path unique to ourselves, with our own unique traits and the ways we see the world. We are worthy. We are valuable. What you say, think is here to share with others. Guests offer new ways of saying something, new perspectives on our roles, possibilities, and new paradigms. Shift, change, grow. Baby steps leading to mid-sized steps, leading to giant steps. Understanding that connection to ourselves and others is also part of a life fully lived and covering so much of the mystical, becoming friendly with our spirit guides, exploring Akashic records, doing energy work, putting protected energy shields around yourself, exploring astrology, numerology, and so much more. This part has been so excited because I'm so curious about what I never learned and what helps support me in this mystical and unseen parts of our lives, our past lives, just the unseen and what we don't know and what science and spirituality are beginning to bring together. But it's so exciting to me because I'm passionate, but there's so much work to delve into here. And women are craving these conversations and modalities and sessions in their lives. I feel that the mystical, I just said some of this, but is the unknown, the places we have questions about, and the place where we find ourselves lighting up when we learn about angels and guides and how you too may actually be way more connected, without a doubt, 100% than you ever thought. And the sisterhood, what is it? And what can this be? What can this look like? This mystical sisterhood, this sisterhood. Collaboration, respect, truly seeing and honoring and celebrating one another. This is the new paradigm. We were never meant to compare or be in competition with one another. Any ways in which we learned when we were young and were told, oh, that's just the way women are. They're gossipy, they're chatty, they're pitted against one another. We've got these shows like The Real Housewives. I am sure these women they're just beautiful on the inside, yet there's something like even in our culture pitting women against each other, and it's not natural. It's not what we're meant here to do. I invite us to think about even what we ingest and what messages, because sometimes it seems like it's in good fun, but if we really look, it's underlying a way to be in competition with one another. And I don't think that's where we're moving. I think it's sticky and you can choose it if you want, but I try not to put too much into that. And there's been parts of me too that have been like, oh, that's a fun show, or but the more I go on and do this work, it's like, it's not natural to me. If I am throwing shade at another woman, I take responsibility for it's my work to mend the places inside me that are not feeling enough or have me triggered in some way. Us taking full responsibility for ourselves as adults, young adults, wherever you are in life's path, is really critical on the journey. And it's not that we're never going to react or have these feelings come up, but there are places that we have inside of us that maybe are still not feeling heard, that are staying in the shadows. And there's a need not yet met, or there's a need not yet met inside of us. Mystical Sisterhood and the messages support us in uncovering these places and recovering our sense of self, wholeness, and identity. I see firsthand what happens when a new model of women coming together looks like collaboration over competition, genuine interest in the success of a woman sitting across from me, and those listening to her messages, leaning in, laughing, smiling, crying, wiping a tear from my eye. It's often called unity consciousness, and you will begin to hear more and more about this. We have each other's backs and support each other in all the ways I've learned about today. And it's not just about what things are called, it's the feeling and what it feels like to be in relationship to one another in this way. There's space for you and me, your feelings and mine, my experience and yours, all of it. There's abundance here for us. We choose to cultivate ourselves so we live from this internal well of abundance versus coming from a limited supply of anything. When women meet in a space that carries this generous energy, everyone can feel it. The conversations can spark ideas in the listeners' minds or my own. This happens all the time. You may notice that although the same themes may come up again and again, each guest or in my solos, the messages are spoken in different ways. I find that's a really powerful way to learn. Someone saying something in just the way you need to hear it is impactful, and hearing consistent messages over time creates new grooves in the way we think about ourselves and the possibilities in our lives. We are each walking a unique and special path, yet we are fully supported by this sisterhood here for us. So you can tell it's an area I'm really passionate about. And there's so much that cannot even be encompassed with the range of topics we've covered over the last 2 years. I intend to create a resource guide for us, or a resource library that the guests have brought forward. And I'm really excited about that. So this idea that we're really moving towards love over fear, unconditional love for ourselves and our sisters and humanity. And I don't often address the men in the room, but for the men who are beginning or have been doing the work and are waking up and are listening to the women in their lives, that even they are possibly being called to balance the masculine and the feminine within. And they have absolutely been conditioned to not share feelings, to not be in touch with their emotions. But what if we imagined a world where we were all operating from both sides so we could experience the best of who we came to be? So choose wisely what you listen to, who you surround yourself with. Keep listening, keep sharing. Tune into the titles and the episodes, the guests that resonate with you. Reach out for support. I'm leading groups. I am always available as long as my schedule permits, for the one-on-one coaching. We each are walking our own life, our own path, yet we have each other to learn from. Like in conscious parenting, which was one of my cornerstones, there is no hierarchy, no better than, power over. When we remember that we're here to do this together, to complement one another's lives, we step into that light and it allows us to evolve. Look for those who help you build, who believe in the possibilities, who bring out the best. I am here for you. Reach out for anything you would like to comment on. So I want to ask you, where do you wish to grow? What do you want to focus on? You are so full of infinite abundance and light. And wow, truly, I am inspired by you, inspired by life, inspired by our shared stories. We were never, ever meant to live in separation. And we've been told that we were since the beginning of our lives, and stories that are out there about separation. Being the solo artist is cool. And it's also a thing of the past in the way. It's wonderful to cultivate what each of us are uniquely here to bring forward, but it's also not necessary to do it alone. So I encourage you to keep walking the path with me, keep doing this work, because the world needs each of us. Expect amazing upcoming episodes, and don't be shy. Reach out to me at hello@maureenspielman.com. You can check out my website at maureenspielman.com or mysticalsisterhood.com to check out the podcast episodes. And I ask you, commit to loving yourself unconditionally and envisioning a very bright future. I'm sending love to each of you. Thanks for being here, and thanks for celebrating with me. Thanks for listening to this episode of Mystical Sisterhood. To learn more about my one-on-one coaching programs or join the Mystical Sisterhood membership, visit maureenspielman.com or mysticalsisterhood.com. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next episode.